it's true that that's the reason why he decides to stay, to make happy the face of his mother. And then when he's going through that hunger strike, then he hears his mum's soul in his soul, his mum's voice in his soul. So it's true that the mother in both cases is the one who retains him to the world of the living. So we were talking about the mother as a female figure. The second important female figure is Madame Coteau. Of course, a very different figure. We were talking about her today, and the way in which she moves from a kind of nurturer at the beginning, when she's actually supporting the poor population, to, at the end, a representative of the new capitalistic elite. So could you tell us more about this evolution of Madame Coteau and her character as a whole? She's a fascinating character, a very ambivalent one as well.
Well, she's as a writer, every now and again you get surprised by someone who turns up. And she, there's some people you invite, and some people just have a talent for inviting themselves. And she just came bursting through the door. I was surprised when she turned up. I must confess. I made no plans for her. There was no pension plan for this lady. I think the role of Madame Coteau in the book, now that I think about it across the space of the years, gave me an opportunity to look at one of the silent subjects of the famished road, which is a place of myth. It is really, in a sense, a fictional meditation on the way in which the myths of a people perish in its collision with a certain kind of history. So if you look at it very, very carefully, I have a very ambivalent attitude towards myth in the book. Some people have felt that it is a book primarily about myth, that I'm telling stories steeped in a lot of Nigerian and African legends and mythology. But I'm also looking at myth as a destroyer of a tradition. I've always found that myth is a very ambivalent thing. It both is the source and the center and the strength of a tradition, but it's also that which, in a sense, prevents a tradition from growing. And can actually be that which turns around and slowly chokes and destroys it. And I think Madame Coteau was drawn from two sources. And I've never spoken about this before because I generally don't like doing this, but you've put an unusual light on me.
Thank you very much. Lucky.
Is it that light? No. Yes, actually, that would be very nice. If you can, yeah. Don't increase the light, whatever you do. Yeah, that's good. Probably make it a bit darker still. One was there's an aunt of mine who's she's a very, very powerful figure. She had a very big stall in the marketplace in Lagos, and I used to go visit her as a kid, and then I didn't see her for a long time. And over the years, I keep asking myself, where did Madame Coteau come from? And I think one part of it is that aunt. But the other part of it is many of the myths and stories that I grew up with. We have these very powerful Isis figures, if you like, in our mythology, and every community has a great woman like that. They kind of like the invisible mountains that anchors people. And I've noticed in my travels throughout Africa that you ask about women like that in the community, and notice that their role changes with history. So the presence of colonialism changed and tainted many of these roles, from being the pure role that it was in ancestral times to being much more ambivalent and slightly darker with the changing necessities of the time. It's not always the case, but I was aware of that. And she gave me a really great excuse to examine what is it that changes in the people when their history has been affected so powerfully in that way. So she is kind of like part human and part enriched by the mythology of goddesses. Like, so she's very dual. And when those ancient energies die or change, what happens? What happens to those figures? I think that's one of my meditations.
So today we were discussing Madame Koto, and one of our colleagues here asked a question about her foot that gets swollen, and we were trying to understand the significance of that foot. And I know you won't have the answer, and you're not going to give me an answer, but I thought maybe can we talk about that foot?
Who raised that question?
I didn't.
And he had a very good interpretation, actually.
What was the interpretation?
I did.
Yes, he did.
So she was pregnant.
He said it was a second pregnancy.
It was a second pregnancy.
It goes along with her pregnancy in a sense. And I was wondering whether it's connected to the earth and the sort of the point of contact.
Yes, absolutely. Very, very interesting interpretation, because I mean, I take all aspects of the universe that I'm writing about very seriously, and the book is after all called The Famished Road, and she walks on it, and she's a figure of a figure that receives and a figure that gives. She's a figure that changes the world around her. She absorbs the world around her. So, in a sense, it would be expected that someone like that would absorb, as it were, various doubtful impregnations in her feet, walking on such changing roads. Yeah, so the idea of it being a double pregnancy was definitely on my mind. Yeah.
So very good. We were on the right track.
Yeah, but you have to think of it as being impregnated with the things of the road.
People pull out worms from their soles
From
of
their
feet,
feet,
right?
yes.
So there's this point of contact, these wiggly things.
Yes.
Suspicious.
Yes. Not just the real worms, but the other worms as well. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about the strategy of namelessness. That there isn't the word Lagos, there isn't the word Nigeria, there isn't the word Igbo or Yoruba or whatever. I think you're going to answer that it's, well, I'm quite convinced that it's better for the consciousness and the myth, and so perhaps the question, you know.
Why are things not named?
Well, I think you have answered. I would be convinced by what you have already answered, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think maybe sometimes things are truer when they're not named, and their essence is revealed more when they're not named. And I was definitely interested because Azaro is in the essences of things. We are fascinated by naming because we have to demarcate the world, because for us the world is demarcated. For us this bottle exists in separation from those books over there, and this table from that set of table. We see the world in demarcations. But Azaro, as part spirit, does not. So again, it comes out of his consciousness, and it's a way of seeing things in their truest way, in a way that naming tends and changes them a little bit. And it's coming through the filter of a pure consciousness. So naming was drained out of it. There are very few characters who are named in the book, and when they are named, it's an extreme act in the novel when mom and dad are not named. Black Tiger is named because of his particular role. Madame Koto is named because of her unique role, and Azaro's name in itself has a whole history, a whole complex history, in it that if you're tracing it in terms of literature, it goes all the way back to a Spanish picaresque novel.
That we talked about this morning. You know, I was thinking that your novel to me is a very synesthetic novel. We've already talked about voices, but not only voices. I think that personally, I feel that I see with Azzaro, I feel with Azzaro, I smell with him, you know, I hear with him. And of course this made me think of what, you know, Conrad's program was, to make you hear, to make you feel, to make you see. But I feel that you're going beyond that precisely because of the nature of Azzaro, that his vision is just not only common vision. His vision is also a double vision. It's the vision of the third eye. It's the new seeing that you were referring to. So did you feel that you had in mind that program of a different type of seeing?
Well, it was unavoidable the minute you stepped into that subject and took it very seriously. The whole idea of the spirit child is not new in Nigerian literature. It's just that no one had seen, and I need to stress this, how much, because I believe that cultures and traditions have maybe one or two or three. I'm not going to use the word fault lines because that's sinister and it's not right. One or two or three perfect points of entry that go all the way to the heart of that tradition. It's very rare that traditions have that many. And I've thought about this a great deal. And in the African consciousness, there may be only two or three, and the spirit child is absolutely one of those. It goes right to the heart of what the people are, their beliefs, the implications of their beliefs, what will survive of it, the way in which it will affect time, and it's for some reason, you know. I stumbled upon this, and as I looked at it, I realized just how central it was. So it's not just about the spirit child; it's also about a resonant entry into a whole tradition and a whole way of seeing. And there are two ways of looking at this. You either looked at it from the outside and just said, "Oh, you have the spirit child," or you inhabit it. And the minute you inhabit it, you have a completely different world. You have a completely different implication altogether. Because from the outside, it's just merely a sociological phenomenon. But from the inside, it's a philosophical, spiritual, a metaphysical, metaphorical, allegorical. It carries so many levels inside it. And then when you attempt to make that real, which means a blurring of the spirit and the body, of the mind and the soul, that's what that means at the end of the day. When you have that blurring, all of the senses begin to contribute to one another. And that's really because, again, looking out of that consciousness becomes a very central question about the nature of reality itself. It makes you ask the question, what is reality? What does it mean to touch something? What is a sound? What does it mean to see something? For us, it's demarcated again, but for the spirit child, it's not, because the world in its purity, as seen by the spirit child, really is just simply gradations of energies that are translated according to one sense or the other. So reality is ambiguous. Reality is profoundly ambiguous, and it really does depend on the consciousness seeing it. So fundamentally, it is a meditation on consciousness as it is modulated by traditional history. So when you talk about this synesthesia, it's